Rejection is not always spoken, but it is always shown. It does not arrive with loud proclamations or dramatic exits. It does not always come with clear words that spell out an ending. More often it seeps into the small moments, delays in responses, averted gazes, the slow retreat of presence. It is in the empty spaces where affection used to reside, in the silence where laughter once echoed. And yet many choose to ignore these signs, hoping that a lack of explicit rejection means there is still a chance. People often wait for direct words, for undeniable confirmation, for someone to say, "I no longer want you in my life." But life does not always offer such clarity. Instead, rejection comes through indifference. It is the unanswered message, the cancelled plans, the lukewarm replies that lack the warmth they once held. It is in the way someone stops making an effort, how they become too busy, too distracted, too distant. There is no need for cruel words when absence speaks loudly enough. The truth is, if someone truly values you, you will feel it effortlessly. And if they do not, you will feel that too, no matter how much you try to deny it. The mistake many people make is seeking verbal closure where none will be given. They look for explanations, demand reasons, and chase conversations that will only bring more pain. But when someone has already shown through their actions that they do not value your presence, what more is there to understand? What purpose does it serve to ask for words when the reality has already been demonstrated? To wait for someone to say, "I don't want you," is to delay your own peace. The answer has already been given, you only need to accept it. A person who truly cares does not make you feel like you are begging for their time. They do not make excuses when you reach out. They do not become cold when they were once warm. They do not leave your presence feeling like a burden. When someone values you, they will show it. Just as those who do not value you will show that as well. And the latter do so through hesitation, neglect, and emotional withdrawal. They may not say it outright, but they do not have to. The message is always there. There is no benefit in lingering where you are unwanted. The longer you stay in a space where rejection lingers unspoken, the more you erode your own sense of self-worth. You begin to question yourself, to wonder what you did wrong, to search for ways to fix something that was never yours to repair. You wait, hoping they will change, that they will return to the person they once were with you. But people do not become cold without reason. And when they do, it is not your duty to warm them back into affection. When someone drifts away, it is not always a sign that you must chase them. Sometimes it is a sign that you must let them go. Acceptance is difficult, but it is necessary. The truth is, you do not need loud words to know when you are no longer wanted. The signs are there, subtle but consistent. They are in the way a conversation feels forced, in how plans always seem to fall through, in the way their energy toward you has shifted. And instead of resisting these signs, instead of explaining them away, the wise thing to do is to acknowledge them for what they are. To accept rejection without it being spoken is an act of strength, not of defeat. Walking away from where you are not valued is not an act of bitterness, but of self-respect. It is the understanding that your time and energy are too precious to be spent where they are not reciprocated. It is the realization that you do not need grand exits or formal goodbyes to know when it is time to move on. Rejection, when felt deeply enough, is its own closure. In the end, people's actions always reveal the truth. And if you are willing to see, you will never need to hear it. Indifference and avoidance are clear answers, though many refuse to acknowledge them. When someone no longer values your presence, they do not always declare it outright. Instead, they slowly withdraw, not in words but in actions, or rather, in the absence of them. Their messages become shorter, their enthusiasm fades, their once eager presence turns into a distant afterthought. These shifts, though subtle at first, eventually become undeniable, and yet so many people choose to ignore them, hoping that if rejection is not spoken aloud, then it is not real. But the truth is simple. When someone cares, you feel it. When they don't, you feel that too. People cling to the illusion that avoidance is something to be questioned rather than accepted. They analyze every delayed response, every last-minute cancellation, every lukewarm interaction, as if there is a hidden meaning beneath it. But the reality is not complex. If someone values you, they show up. They make time. They find ways to include you in their life. And if they do not, They create distance. They do not need to tell you that they no longer prioritize you. Their actions already reveal it. To ignore this is to deceive yourself, to willingly remain in a place where you are unwanted. The most painful form of rejection is not the one that is spoken outright, but the one that comes in the form of neglect. It is when someone once full of warmth suddenly becomes cold, when your presence in their life shifts from a source of joy to something they tolerate at best. This shift is often gradual, making it easy to deny. You convince yourself that they are simply busy, that they have things on their mind, that it is just a temporary phase. But deep down, you know, people make time for what matters. No one is so busy that they cannot offer even the smallest effort for someone they genuinely care about. When effort disappears, when attention fades, when responses become lifeless, the answer is already there. Indifference is not an accident. It is a decision. When someone begins to treat you as if you do not matter, they are making a choice even if they do not say it directly. They may not wish to hurt you, they may not want to deal with confrontation, or they may simply not care enough to explain themselves. But their avoidance, their lack of enthusiasm, their passive retreat from your presence, all of it speaks louder than words ever could. And yet so many people refuse to hear what is being said. They keep reaching out, keep waiting, keep making excuses for the other person's behavior, hoping that one day the situation will return to what it once was. But indifference, once it takes root, rarely reverses itself. When someone stops valuing you, the most you will ever receive from them is politeness, not genuine care. Avoidance, too, is an answer that should not be questioned. When someone repeatedly finds ways to not be around you, when they make excuses instead of making plans, when their presence becomes sporadic and reluctant, you do not need to ask them what is wrong. They have already shown you. No one avoids what they truly desire. If they wanted to be with you, they would be. If they wanted to engage, they would. It is as simple as that. The mind resists this truth because it is painful to accept, but rejecting reality only prolongs suffering. Chasing someone who is actively moving away from you does not bring them back, it only drains you. Many people wait for closure in the form of words, believing that a conversation will bring them peace. They want to hear a direct rejection, a final declaration that things are over. But closure is not given, it is recognized. It is seen in the way someone treats you, in the effort they no longer put in the warmth that has disappeared. There is no need for dramatic conversations or final explanations, because the explanation has already been provided through their actions. Accepting this requires strength, the strength to acknowledge what is painful, the strength to walk away without needing validation, the strength to understand that silence itself is an answer. There is no need to chase clarity when it is already in front of you. Indifference and avoidance are not invitations for you to try harder, to prove your worth, or to demand explanations. They are the clearest indicators that you are no longer wanted in the way you once were. And instead of resisting this reality, the wise choice is to accept it. No amount of effort on your part will change what someone has already decided. The only thing you can control is your response, whether you stay in a place where you are not valued, or whether you recognize that your time, energy, and presence are too valuable to be spent on those who no longer appreciate them. When you find yourself in the presence of indifference, the right response is not to ask why. It is not to push for answers or try to revive something that has already faded. The right response is to let go, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with the understanding that the way people treat you is always the answer you need. And when that answer is indifference, the only wise choice is to stop asking questions. Do not chase explanations when none are needed. The truth, when it arrives, is often quiet. It does not always come in the form of long conversations, formal goodbyes, or neatly packaged conclusions. Instead, it appears in the way someone withdraws, in the absence of effort, in the space between what was and what is now. And yet, many refuse to accept what is already clear. They chase explanations, searching for reasons, as if understanding why will somehow make the pain of rejection less real. But the pursuit of explanations where none are needed is not a search for closure. It is a refusal to accept reality as it stands. People often believe that if they could just hear the right words, everything would make sense. They want to know why someone's feelings changed, why enthusiasm faded, Why a presence that once felt constant is now distant. They tell themselves that if they could just get an answer, they could move on. But the truth is that most of the time they already know the answer. It is in the way someone stopped trying, in the way conversations became shorter, in the way they no longer seem excited to see you. The need for verbal confirmation is often just an excuse to delay accepting what is already evident. Seeking explanations where none are needed is a form of self-inflicted suffering. It keeps you tethered to something that has already let go of you. It is an attempt to make sense of something that does not require deeper analysis. When someone stops prioritizing you, when their energy shifts from warmth to coldness, when they no longer make space for you in their life, that is the answer. They may not have spoken it aloud, but it has been communicated all the same. Looking for more than this is often just a way to avoid facing the discomfort of moving on. People who walk away rarely provide the kind of clarity that others seek. Some do not want to have difficult conversations. Others feel guilty and prefer to fade away rather than confront the discomfort of telling the truth. Some may not even fully understand their own reasons, but whatever the case, their actions tell the story. A person who wants to stay in your life will find a way to do so. A person who does not will gradually step away, whether they say it outright or not. This is why chasing explanations is futile. It does not change the outcome. Understanding why someone no longer wants you in their life does not bring them back. It does not fill the empty spaces they have left behind. It only keeps you stuck in the past, hoping that knowledge will somehow undo what has already been done. There is a certain peace in accepting what is, rather than searching for reasons that will not change anything. When you stop asking why and simply acknowledge what is in front of you, you free yourself. You no longer need closure from someone who has already given it to you through their actions. You no longer waste energy trying to extract answers that will not ease the pain. Instead, you accept reality on its own terms. This is not the easy path. It requires strength. But it is the only path that leads forward. Some explanations, if given, would not provide the comfort people hope for. What if the answer is simply that someone lost interest? That they found someone else? That they no longer feel the same way? These are not answers that bring relief. They are answers that wound, that force an unwanted reality to the surface. And so often, those who chase explanations are not actually looking for the truth. They are looking for reassurance, for a way to hear the words without feeling the pain. But no explanation can soften the reality of being unwanted. No carefully worded reason can undo rejection. Sometimes, not knowing is a mercy. The need for explanations often stems from the desire to control, to make sense of things, to place events into neat categories. But human emotions are not always logical, nor are people always willing or able to articulate their reasons. The wise do not demand answers where silence has already spoken. They do not chase after clarity from those who have already made their decisions. They recognize that sometimes the only answer needed is the one that has already been shown. Walking away without needing explanations is not a sign of weakness, it is a sign of strength. It means you have chosen to prioritize your peace over your curiosity. It means you understand that closure does not come from words, it comes from acceptance. It means you refuse to waste energy on someone who has already made it clear that they are no longer invested. And in doing so, you reclaim your power. There is nothing to be gained from searching for explanations when none are necessary. There is no wisdom in waiting for someone to verbalize what has already been shown through their behavior. The truth is always present for those willing to see it. And when you see it, the only thing left to do is accept it and move on. Detachment is wisdom, not weakness. It is not an act of coldness, nor is it an admission of failure. Rather, it is the understanding that holding on too tightly to what is not meant for you only brings suffering. Many believe that to detach from something or someone is to show indifference, to become emotionless, or to abandon what once mattered. But true detachment is not about caring less, it is about caring in a way that does not consume you. It is about recognizing that forcing something to remain in your life when it is meant to leave is a battle that cannot be won. People often associate strength with persistence, with fighting for things, with never giving up. But wisdom teaches otherwise. There is great strength in knowing when to let go, in understanding that clinging to people, situations, or outcomes beyond your control does not demonstrate love or dedication. It demonstrates resistance to reality. To detach is not to reject, it is to accept. It is to acknowledge the truth as it is rather than as you wish it to be. This acceptance requires a depth of wisdom that many struggle to embrace because the human mind is naturally inclined to hold on. It is trained to believe that more effort, more patience, or more sacrifice can always change an outcome. But this is not always true. Some things are simply not meant to stay. Detachment does not mean shutting yourself off from emotions. It does not mean suppressing how you feel or pretending you do not care. Instead, it means allowing things to be as they are without trying to control them. It is understanding that people will come and go, that circumstances will change, that nothing remains exactly the same forever. This is not a sad realization, it is a liberating one. Because when you accept that change is inevitable, you stop fearing it. You stop grasping at what is slipping away. You stop resisting what life is trying to teach you. Many people confuse attachment with love, thinking that if they hold on tightly enough, they can preserve what they cherish. But love that is rooted in fear of loss is not love, it is dependency. To truly love something or someone is to give them the freedom to be as they are, without demanding that they stay the same for your comfort. This is why detachment is wisdom. It allows you to appreciate what is present without fearing its absence. It allows you to engage deeply without becoming enslaved by the need for permanence. There is great suffering in attachment, in the desperate need to control outcomes, in the refusal to accept when things have run their course. When you become attached to a certain version of reality, to a specific outcome, or to a person's presence in your life, you create expectations that are often beyond your control. And when reality does not align with those expectations, disappointment follows. But disappointment is not caused by change, it is caused by resistance to change. When you detach, you free yourself from this resistance. You stop demanding that life bend to your will, and instead you learn to flow with it. People often resist detachment because they believe it means giving up, that it means accepting defeat. But wisdom shows that detachment is not an act of surrender, it is an act of understanding. It is not passive, it is intentional. It means choosing peace over chaos, choosing clarity over confusion, choosing freedom over entrapment. When you detach, you do not stop caring, but you stop allowing external circumstances to dictate your internal state. You recognize that your happiness, your stability, your sense of self, these things do not depend on anything outside of you. Detachment is the ability to walk away when something no longer serves you, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for yourself. It is understanding that you are not obligated to keep things in your life that drain you, that disrespect you, or that no longer align with who you are becoming. Many people stay in places they have outgrown because they fear the unknown, because they have invested time, because they believe walking away is a failure. But wisdom teaches otherwise. Walking away is not weakness. It is the recognition that growth often requires distance, that peace often requires separation, that sometimes letting go is the highest form of love, both for yourself and for others. This wisdom extends beyond relationships. It applies to all aspects of life: the pursuit of success, the expectations we place on ourselves, the way we engage with the world. When you detach from outcomes, you are no longer controlled by fear of failure. You are able to act with intention without being consumed by the need for a specific result. This is where true power lies, in the ability to give your best effort without attaching your entire sense of self-worth to whether or not things go as planned. Detachment allows you to pursue your goals with clarity, to take risks without fear, to embrace life's uncertainty with confidence rather than anxiety. The beauty of detachment is that it does not mean you stop experiencing life deeply, it means you experience it fully, without resistance. You still love, but you love freely, without possession. You still work toward your dreams, but you do so without desperation. You still engage with the world, but you do not allow its chaos to disrupt your inner peace. Detachment does not strip life of meaning, it enhances it. Because when you no longer live in fear of loss, you are free to appreciate what is here, right now, without constantly worrying about what will come next. To detach is to trust. It is to trust that what is meant for you will stay, and what is not meant for you will leave. It is to trust that you do not need to force anything, that you do not need to cling, that you do not need to chase. It is to trust that your worth is not determined by external validation, that your happiness is not dependent on circumstances, that your peace is something that cannot be taken from you unless you allow it. Many misunderstand detachment because they see it as emotional withdrawal, as a lack of care. But detachment is not coldness, it is warmth without dependency. It is connection without control. It is presence without expectation. To be detached does not mean to live without emotion. It means to live without being ruled by it. It means to love, to strive, to experience fully, but with the wisdom to know when to let go, when to step back, when to release what no longer aligns with you. True strength is not found in clinging, it is found in the ability to move forward with grace. And so detachment is not weakness, it is the deepest form of wisdom. It is the understanding that everything in life is temporary, that nothing is truly ours to keep forever, and that this is not a cause for sorrow, but for freedom. It is the realization that we do not lose when we let go, we gain peace, clarity, and the ability to live with an open heart, unburdened by the weight of attachment. Your energy is precious, invest it wisely. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you engage with, and every action you take is an investment of your energy. Yet many people spend their energy recklessly, pouring it into situations, relationships, and conflicts that offer little in return. They exhaust themselves trying to change people who do not want to change, trying to prove their worth to those who do not see it, and trying to hold on to things that are already slipping away. But just as you would not carelessly spend your money on things that bring no value, you should not carelessly spend your energy on things that drain you. Many fail to recognize the true cost of misplaced energy. It is not just about physical exhaustion, it is about emotional depletion. It is about feeling drained without understanding why, about carrying burdens that are not yours to carry, about waking up each day with a sense of heaviness that comes from investing in things that do not nourish you. And while people often think of energy as something infinite, the truth is that it is limited. You only have so much to give. If you constantly waste it on things that do not serve you, you will have nothing left for the things that do. There are people who take more than they give, who demand your attention but do not reciprocate it, who rely on you for support but are never there when you need them. There are situations that consume your mind, filling your thoughts with unnecessary worries, leaving you stressed over things you cannot control. There are habits that drain you, patterns of overthinking, of self-doubt, of engaging in conflicts that lead nowhere. All of these things are energy leaks, places where you continuously pour yourself into something that gives you nothing in return. The first step to protecting your energy is recognizing these leaks and having the courage to walk away from them. Your energy should be treated like a valuable resource because that is exactly what it is. Just as you would not let others take your money without reason, you should not let others drain your energy without purpose. Every interaction you have, every environment you place yourself in, and every thought you choose to engage with either fuels you or depletes you. And if something depletes you, it is your responsibility to remove yourself from it. No one else will do this for you. This does not mean that you should never experience difficulty or discomfort. There are times when investing your energy into hard work, into deep relationships, into personal struggles is necessary for growth. But the key difference is that these things, while challenging, offer something meaningful in return. They contribute to your life rather than take away from it. There is a difference between the temporary exhaustion that comes from meaningful effort and the continuous drain that comes from misplaced investment. The first builds you up, the second wears you down. Knowing the difference is crucial. One of the most common ways people waste their energy is by giving too much to those who do not appreciate it. Whether it is friends, family members, or romantic partners, there will always be those who take without giving, who demand without reciprocating, who expect your presence but offer little in return. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control how much of yourself you give to them. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not everyone should have the privilege of your attention, your time, or your emotional labor. Learning to set boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary. When you set boundaries, you are not being cruel, you are being wise. You are recognizing that your energy is not limitless, and that if you do not protect it, others will deplete it without a second thought. Another way people lose energy is by engaging in unnecessary conflicts. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every insult or misunderstanding requires a response. People often waste vast amounts of energy trying to prove themselves to those who have already made up their minds, arguing with those who do not truly listen, or seeking validation from those who will never give it. But wisdom is knowing when to walk away, not because you are weak, but because you understand that your energy is too valuable to waste on things that do not bring peace or growth. Overthinking is another silent thief of energy. The mind is a powerful tool, but when left unchecked, it can drain you. Worrying about things that have not happened, replaying past mistakes, or constantly second-guessing yourself takes more from you than you realize. Thoughts require energy, and if your thoughts are filled with fear, regret, or doubt, you will find yourself exhausted even when you have done nothing physical. Learning to direct your thoughts, to focus on what you can control rather than what you cannot, is one of the most powerful ways to preserve your energy. Where you place your energy determines the quality of your life. If you invest it in negative people, in unnecessary drama, in self-doubt and worry, your life will reflect that. But if you invest it in growth, in people who uplift you, in work that fulfills you, in practices that bring you peace, then your life will reflect that instead. Energy is not just about physical stamina, it is about emotional and mental well-being. It is about making choices that protect your peace, that honor your time, that ensure you are spending your days in ways that add to your life rather than subtract from it. Your energy is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely. Not everything deserves your attention, not everyone deserves your effort, and not every situation deserves your reaction. When you learn to guard your energy, you learn to guard your peace. And in doing so, you create a life that is not dictated by exhaustion, but by purpose, by intention, and by the knowledge that what you invest in will determine what you receive in return. Accept reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn, yet one of the most important. People spend much of their lives resisting reality, hoping that circumstances will change, that people will become who they are not, that outcomes will shift in their favor. But this resistance does not change what is, it only creates suffering. Reality does not bend to wishes, and the more one fights against it, the more one remains trapped in frustration, disappointment, and denial. True peace comes not from forcing reality to conform to desires, but from aligning oneself with the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. Many struggle with accepting reality because it often contradicts their expectations. People expect relationships to last forever, but some fade away. They expect fairness in life, but the world does not always operate on fairness. They expect that hard work will always lead to success, but effort alone does not always guarantee reward. When expectations do not match reality, pain arises not because of reality itself, but because of the refusal to accept it. The more one clings to how things should be, the harder it becomes to deal with how things are. Accepting reality is not an act of weakness. It is not giving up. It is not being passive. It is understanding that peace comes from working with the truth rather than resisting it. When a person loses a loved one, no amount of wishing will bring them back. When a relationship ends, no amount of effort will force another person to stay. When an opportunity is lost, no amount of regret will undo the past. The pain of these experiences is real, but what prolongs suffering is the refusal to accept what has already happened. People hold on to illusions, hoping that things will return to how they once were, but the past cannot be undone. Reality moves forward, whether one accepts it or not. The sooner one stops resisting, the sooner healing can begin. Many people live in denial, avoiding truths that feel too painful to confront. They ignore red flags in relationships, pretending that things are fine when they are not. They avoid difficult conversations, hoping that silence will solve problems. They stay in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and situations that no longer serve them, all because they refuse to face the truth. But denial does not protect, it only delays the inevitable. Reality does not disappear just because it is ignored. Sooner or later, it demands to be acknowledged. The longer one resists, the more painful the eventual reckoning becomes. One of the greatest acts of strength is the ability to see reality clearly, even when it is not what one wants to see. To recognize when something is over and let go. To see when someone's actions do not match their words and stop making excuses for them. To understand that not everything will go according to plan and to adapt rather than despair. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It does not mean pretending not to care. It means allowing oneself to feel, but without being blinded by wishful thinking. It means choosing truth over comfort, even when the truth is difficult to face. Accepting reality does not mean liking it. It does not mean that everything that happens is good or fair. But it does mean acknowledging that things are as they are regardless of personal feelings. The world does not operate according to one's preferences, and life does not always go the way one hopes. But within acceptance there is the power to move forward instead of remaining stuck. Those who resist reality remain trapped in the past, dwelling on what could have been. Those who accept it gain the ability to respond effectively, to make better choices, to focus on what can be changed instead of mourning what cannot. People often confuse acceptance with surrender, but they are not the same. Surrender is giving up. Acceptance is choosing to see clearly. It is understanding that while some things cannot be controlled, one still has power over their own actions, responses, and mindset. It is realizing that struggling against what is does not change reality, it only drains energy that could be used to build a better future. When people accept reality, they free themselves from unnecessary suffering. They stop chasing things that no longer exist. They stop waiting for others to change. They stop hoping for a different past. Instead, they focus on what is within their control, and in doing so, they reclaim their own power. There is great peace in accepting things as they are. It removes the weight of unrealistic expectations, the exhaustion of fighting battles that cannot be won, and the pain of holding on to what no longer exists. It does not mean life will always be easy, but it does mean that one will no longer waste energy on illusions. When a person learns to accept reality, they learn to move forward with clarity, resilience, and a deep understanding that while they may not control everything, they always control how they choose to respond. Acceptance is not about resignation, it is about empowerment. It is the key to inner peace, the foundation of resilience, and the path to true freedom. When you stop resisting reality, you stop wasting energy on what cannot be changed and start focusing on what can. You let go of the need to control everything, and in doing so you gain control over yourself. Life will not always go as you wish, but when you accept it as it is, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering and open the door to growth, wisdom, and strength. The sooner you embrace reality, the sooner you can move forward, not weighed down by what was, but empowered by what is and what can be.